first thing I wanted to ask is that when you talk about Mindsight, it sounds a lot like what Dan Goleman talks about as social or emotional intelligence. And I'm wondering if you can help us. Is this a new way of talking about emotional intelligence, or is there some distinction there?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that Dan Goleman wrote the foreword to the new book, Mindsight.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's really great because having written social intelligence and having written emotional intelligence, he was the guy to address your question.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, so what Dan says in the foreword, and certainly I concur, is that Mindsight is the mechanism that's beneath these seemingly separate things of emotional intelligence and social intelligence. People also in the field of mindfulness say, well, isn't it just mindfulness?
Right.
And it's not just mindfulness. So having just taught with Jack Kornfield and John Kabat-Zinn, we're talking about the differences. This triangle of well-being really helps you clarify how emotional intelligence, social intelligence are explained by Mindsight, and also how mindfulness fits into this larger frame of seeing the brain mechanisms of integration, for example, or looking at how integration, that is, my honoring you, you honoring me, but then us linking together. That's not something discussed in mindfulness directly, and certainly in emotional and social intelligence, it's inferred, but not integration itself is actually not described at all. So the whole Mindsight approach embraces defining the mind, which you don't do at mindfulness, and really you describe it, but you don't define it. The same thing with emotional and social intelligence, just because no one's done it. Right. And then you go forward and say, actually, how do you take energy and information flow and allow it to be toward integration? So it straight on goes and says, let's talk about what health is and how emotional and social intelligence, that is Mindsight, are necessary for that, how mindfulness is necessary for that, how actually knowing about the nervous system can be essential for knowing, for example, if you've been traumatized, how integration has been impaired, and then how to feel the texture of different circuits in the brain, literally the skull-based brain, and know how to work that into your awareness, so you use the mind to actually shape the brain in new ways. So all of that is included in the Mindsight approach, and I think it informs mindfulness, as the book The Mindful Brain tried to do, and it can, by looking at it this way, you can actually see the incredible parallels between parent-child relationships and attachment, which is one field of study, and contemplative practices in mindfulness. So now what my students are doing is, the ones getting PhDs, are looking at the features of a secure attachment, and now looking for mindfulness traits in the parent to see if they coordinate with or correlate with the child's security of attachment to that parent. And the preliminary data says yes.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
And even trained as an attachment researcher myself, and not being trained as a mindfulness practitioner, what was fascinating for me was to take the criteria we use to assess the adult narrative, which is the most robust predictor of a child's attachment, is how the parent has made sense of his or her early life experiences.
Right.
Not what happened to him or her, but actually how they make sense of it.
The insight.
The insight into saying, look, these good things happen, these bad things happen, I'm still working on it, it's hard, it's a challenge, but I see how my relationships really affected me. That would be a coherent narrative versus, nothing bad ever happened to me, everything was good, or, I don't remember anything, or something like that.
Yeah.
The parents who have a coherent narrative, when they've made sense, it looks like those criteria, even though they were done without even the concept of mindfulness in mind,
Right.
100% overlap with the scientists who don't know anything about attachment research, who are now looking into mindfulness traits.
Wow.
So by actually being kind of an innocent and newbie to these fields, bringing them together, you see these discoveries, so that Mindsight informs all of these different fields, even though it's a term that is new in our vocabulary.